Catherine stood silently by the window, the crimson sunset casting its glow over the old wooden house. In the quiet room, she caught a faint whisper drifting from the next room. At first, Catherine thought it was Olivia, her young and beautiful daughter-in-law, chatting with friends on the phone. But when a burst of giggles mingled with cold, cutting words reached her ears, her whole body froze. Let that old woman think she still has some worth. The weaker she acts, the easier she is to control. Those words stabbed Catherine's heart like sharp knives. For years, she had tried to maintain harmony, swallowing her pride in the face of Olivia's indifference, all for the sake of her son's happiness. But now she understood. Behind her daughter-in-law's sweet smile lay a dark, unfathomable abyss. Catherine was 62, widowed for nearly a decade. This house wasn't just where she lived, it was where she and her husband had built countless memories, and where she had raised her son into adulthood. After he got married, Catherine agreed to let the young couple move in, hoping the home would feel warmer with more family around. She had always been gentle, kind, never one to raise her voice, but Olivia's presence had slowly cracked the peace she once cherished. Olivia, just past 30, always appeared flawless. Voluminous curled hair, full red lips, stylish outfits. In front of friends and relatives, she played the role of the dutiful daughter-in-law, sweetly calling Catherine Mom, pouring tea, serving water like the perfect wife. Yet the moment they were alone, her eyes turned icy, her words laced with contempt. Catherine had grown used to being belittled, but she never imagined Olivia would go so far as to call her a poor, useless old hag behind her back. As dusk settled, Catherine suddenly felt like a stranger in her own home. The pain lodged in her throat, but along with it came something else, a flicker of caution. Olivia's scorn wasn't just cruelty, there was something more, something hidden. The next day, the little kitchen of the house was filled with the savory aroma of chicken soup. Catherine carefully set each bowl on the table, hoping that a family meal might wash away the cold feeling from the night before. When Olivia came down the stairs, her high heels clacking against the wooden floor, Catherine offered a warm smile. "Would you like some soup? I've been simmering it since morning." Olivia glanced up briefly, the corner of her lips curling into a faint smile. "Yes, thank you, Mother." The words were polite, but the detached tone made Catherine feel abandoned in her own home. Her son, busy with work, rarely noticed such subtleties. To him, Olivia was a gentle, loving wife. In his eyes, mother and wife lived together peacefully. At first glance, the dinner seemed cozy, the clink of spoons against bowls, warm yellow light spilling over the faces of 3 people. Catherine's son talked about a new project at work. Olivia nodded occasionally, smiling like a supportive spouse. But Catherine felt the heavy silence between their words, a thin veil covering an uncomfortable truth. Every so often, Olivia's gaze flicked toward her, sharp and arrogant, a stark contrast to the sweet smile she wore. Catherine swallowed her food, forcing herself to appear calm, but inside, she was piecing together fragments of suspicion. The mysterious phone calls, Olivia's vague excuses for coming home late, the guarded look when she tucked her wallet into her purse. The house, once a haven of peace, now pulsed with a dangerous undercurrent. Catherine felt as though she was teetering between truth and illusion, and behind Olivia's smile lay a darkness she had yet to uncover. And that night, Catherine entered her room, trying to convince herself she was overthinking. But as she opened the closet for a scarf, her eyes caught something unusual. A brown envelope neatly tucked behind the drawer in Olivia's room, placed almost as if waiting to be discovered. Catherine's hands trembled. A strong instinct told her that whatever lay inside would change everything. She sat down on the edge of the bed, clutching the envelope with shaking fingers. In the silence, broken only by the ticking of the wall clock, she hesitated for a moment before tearing the seal. Her heart pounded, as if afraid Olivia might appear suddenly behind her. Inside was not ordinary paperwork, but a thick stack of bills, all in Olivia's name. Catherine squinted, struggling to read the numbers. The debts were so massive they stole her breath. Bank loans, credit cards, personal borrowings, all together forming a mountain of debt she could hardly imagine. Catherine bit her lip, worry flooding her entire body. Olivia had always lived lavishly. Designer handbags, fancy dinners, shopping sprees without restraint. Her son worked hard, his salary steady, but not nearly enough to sustain such extravagance. Then where was the money coming from? Suddenly, Catherine remembered the whisper she had overheard on the phone. "Let that old woman think she still has some worth." The words now rang with chilling clarity, falling into place like a missing piece of a puzzle. Olivia's contempt wasn't the only problem. She was hiding a massive financial secret. Carefully, Catherine tucked the papers back into the envelope and returned it to its place, making sure it looked untouched. She knew that if Olivia discovered she had snooped, things would only get far worse. That night, Catherine lay awake, staring at the dark ceiling. A single question hammered in her mind. What is Olivia doing with all that money? And why doesn't my son know? Outside, the night wind whistled through the cracks, carrying with it a cold sense of dread. Catherine knew this was only the beginning of a darker truth. The following morning, Catherine sat at the kitchen table, a steaming cup of tea in her hands. A sleepless night had left dark hollows under her eyes, but she knew she couldn't stay silent forever. When her son was about to leave for work, she gently called out, "Andrew, I need to ask you something." He paused, surprised his mother rarely sounded this serious. "Yes, Mom. What is it?" Catherine hesitated for a moment, then spoke carefully. "I've noticed that Olivia has been spending a lot lately. Do you know anything about your finances with her? I mean, are there any debts you don't know about?" Andrew frowned, confusion flashing across his face. He quickly looked away, grabbed his jacket, and forced a smile. "Mom, women just like shopping sometimes. Don't worry. I'm in control. There's nothing wrong." The answer came too fast, too dismissively. Catherine stared into her son's eyes and saw the unease he was trying to hide. He had never been a good liar. She had known that since he was a boy. Clearly, he knew something, but didn't want to admit it. "If you're really struggling, you can tell me," Catherine said softly. "I'll find a way to help." But Andrew only smiled, kissed her on the cheek, and hurried out the door, leaving Catherine alone in the kitchen. The moment the door clicked shut, her smile faded. She was certain Olivia wasn't just reckless with money. Something larger, darker was being concealed. She drew in a deep breath and whispered to herself, "If my son won't tell me, then I'll have to find out myself." That afternoon, while Andrew was still at the office, Catherine decided to seize the chance to confront Olivia. She found her lounging on the sofa in the living room, legs crossed, scrolling through her phone. Her hair shimmered down her shoulders, and on her finger gleamed a brand-new diamond ring Catherine had never seen before. Catherine cleared her throat. "Olivia, I'd like to ask you something." Sensitive. Olivia looked up, her lips curling into a faint, chilly smile. "Oh. And what could be so important, mother-in-law?" Catherine took a deep breath, steadying herself. "I happened to come across some papers. You're in financial trouble, aren't you? If you need help, Andrew and I could work together to find a solution." For a brief moment, Olivia's smile froze. She set down her phone, her eyes flashing sharp. Instead of answering, she let out a dry, mocking laugh, a hollow sound that made Catherine's skin crawl. "Do you really think you have the right to meddle? Let me be honest, Mother. You're nothing but a poor, pitiful old woman. You don't know anything about my world. You'd better leave these matters to the younger ones." Each word pierced Catherine's chest like a blade. Her heart ached, but Olivia wasn't finished. She rose from the sofa, leaned in close, and whispered viciously in Catherine's ear, "Stay out of what doesn't belong to you, because you won't like what you find behind this smile." Then Olivia turned and strode upstairs, leaving Catherine trembling in the room. It felt as if she had just stepped into a game of chess whose rules she did not know. Clutching her chest, Catherine fought back tears. Deep down, she realized Olivia wasn't just mocking her, she had delivered a warning. A vague, dangerous warning that only fueled Catherine's determination. She had to uncover the truth. That night, when the lights went out and Olivia's bedroom door was locked, Catherine lay wide awake. Olivia's cruel words echoed in her mind, painful, yet sharpening her resolve. She decided she would dig deeper, because her instincts told her what she had found so far was only the tip of the iceberg. While cleaning the living room one evening, Catherine's eyes landed on Olivia's handbag carelessly left on the chair. She hesitated for a moment, then with trembling fingers unzipped it. Inside, besides makeup and a wallet, she found a slim envelope of photographs. Catherine pulled out a few, and her heart began to pound wildly. Olivia was sitting in an upscale restaurant, dining intimately with an unfamiliar man. He looked to be in his 40s, broad-shouldered, with an air of dominance as he draped his arm over the back of her chair. In each photo, Olivia smiled more warmly, more sincerely than Catherine had ever seen when she was with the family. Catherine's hands shook so badly she nearly dropped the photos. She whispered to herself, "This can't be. Who is he? And why?" A suspicion heavier than debt suddenly took root. Olivia wasn't just living a double life, she might be hiding an affair. Catherine recalled the late nights, the vague excuses about overtime, the short business trips. Were those all lies to cover secret meetings with this man? Yet as soon as the thought of infidelity surfaced, Catherine noticed something off. In one photo, a thick folder was clearly visible on the table, and the man's expression, it wasn't affectionate. It was stern, controlling, almost threatening. Catherine's spine tingled. This wasn't a love affair. It looked more like a shady transaction. She shoved the photos back into the envelope, her breath ragged as if she had just escaped a suffocating room. Collapsing onto a chair, she covered her face with both hands and murmured, "Oh God, what has Olivia dragged this family into?" Outside, the rain tapped heavily against the window, deepening the gloom. Catherine knew the path to the truth had only just begun, and it would be neither easy nor safe. The next day, the sky was heavy with gray clouds, threatening a storm. Catherine sat at the kitchen table, staring at a cup of cold tea. In her mind, puzzle pieces spun endlessly. The mountain of debt, Olivia's cruel mockery, the photos of her with the mysterious man. Each clue alone might mean little, but together they painted a terrifying picture. Olivia wasn't merely an arrogant daughter-in-law, she was hiding a secret that could endanger the whole family. At noon, while Olivia went out to meet a friend, Catherine discreetly asked her neighbor, Mrs. Tessa. With a weary sigh, Tessa admitted, "I've seen Olivia take taxis to the upscale part of town many times, not like she was going to work. Once, she even carried a big bag, looked like paperwork." Catherine nodded, her heartbeat racing. Every scrap of gossip confirmed her instincts. Olivia was entangled in something dangerous, something involving money, maybe even dangerous people. That evening, Olivia came home late, her lipstick smudged, her face weary but still forcing a smile at Andrew. He didn't notice a thing, too absorbed in his laptop after a few casual questions. Catherine watched them, her heart torn between pity for her son and fury at his blindness. Once Olivia disappeared into the bedroom, Catherine whispered to herself, voice breaking but resolute, "If my son can't protect himself, then I will." In that moment, a surge of determination rose inside her. Catherine knew she had to become an investigator in her own home. No longer would she be just the poor old woman Olivia sneered at. She would uncover the truth and strip away that fake smile. Outside, the wind howled through the cracks, a chilling omen. The air grew thick, foretelling storms ahead. Early one morning, while Olivia was still fast asleep, Catherine quietly stepped into the living room. Pale light filtered through the curtains, falling across the elegant wardrobe Olivia had bought a few months earlier. Doubt gnawed at her, but instinct urged her on. This might be where something is hidden. She opened each drawer, sifting through clothes scented with expensive perfume. At the very bottom, her trembling hand brushed against a small black leather notebook tucked into the corner. Catherine opened it, her breath catching. Inside were no ordinary notes, but columns of figures and the names of banks. Most of the entries were transfer out, followed by cryptic initials like DH or MR. Frowning, Catherine flipped through the pages. The sums were enormous, far exceeding her son's annual salary. She whispered under her breath, "Olivia, what on earth are you doing?" Just then, a creak on the stairs made her freeze. Quickly, she shut the notebook, shoved it back into the drawer, and pretended to be tidying when Olivia came down. Dressed in a silk robe, Olivia glanced over, lips curved in a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Up early, Mother? Cleaning up for me?" "How thoughtful." The sweetness of her voice clashed with the dagger-sharp glint in her eyes. Catherine forced a smile, though her heart hammered in her chest. She knew Olivia was suspicious, but she had no proof to accuse her. When Olivia turned away, Catherine clenched her fists in her apron. "I can't back down now," she told herself. "That notebook proves she's tangled up in shady money dealings. I need to find out who DH and MR are." That night, Catherine wrote down everything she remembered from the notebook in a journal of her own, hiding it under her pillow. She felt like an aging detective, but she knew every small detail might one day lead her to the truth. She also realized she needed someone else to confirm what she had found. So the next afternoon, while Olivia was meeting a friend, Catherine paid a visit to her longtime neighbor, Mrs. Tessa. Tessa welcomed her warmly, poured her a hot cup of tea. When Catherine cautiously asked about Olivia, Tessa's face grew dark. "I don't like to gossip, but since you asked, I've seen Olivia get out of taxis at the end of the street, carrying fancy shopping bags. Once, I even saw her with a tall, gray-haired man. Didn't look like a coworker, more like someone close." Catherine stiffened. That man could be the one in the photographs she had found. She nodded, thanked Tessa, but inside her unease only deepened. The next day, Catherine visited a small cafe where Olivia used to work before marrying Andrew. An old colleague named Laurie recognized her and sat down cheerfully. After a bit of small talk, Catherine gently steered the conversation. "Laurie, you must know Olivia well from back then. She seems so busy these days. I wonder if anything's changed." Laurie lowered her voice, glancing around. "To be honest, Mrs. Catherine, Olivia quit our company a while ago. I heard she's been drowning in debt, always borrowing money. Some even said she had connections with a pawnshop owner, something shady, but I'm not sure." Catherine clutched her coffee cup, her heart sinking. So it was true. Olivia no longer had a stable job, yet she still pretended to go to work every day, living even more extravagantly than before. Back home, Catherine stood silently in the kitchen, the yellow light spilling across the tiled floor. The puzzle pieces were starting to fit together, forming a dark, grim picture. Olivia was living a double life, entangled in dangerous dealings beyond the family's walls. She whispered to herself, "If I don't expose her, Olivia will destroy Andrew and this house." That evening, Catherine sat in the living room pretending to read the newspaper, her ears tuned to every sound. Olivia left in a rush, her heavy footsteps echoing, her perfume lingering in the air. Catherine waited a few minutes, then slipped on her coat and followed at a distance. Down the long street, Catherine kept to the shadows. Olivia hailed a taxi. Catherine took another, following close behind. Olivia's car stopped in front of an upscale restaurant in the city's wealthy district. Through the bright windows, Catherine saw her daughter-in-law seated across from the same man from the photos. Her heart clenched. The image of Olivia with another man, under dim romantic lights, looked exactly like a secret date. Shame and fury twisted inside Catherine, on behalf of her son. But as she watched more closely, she realized something was off. Olivia wasn't smiling brightly, nor gazing at him with affection. Instead, her lips were pressed tight, her face tense, her eyes full of fear. The man tapped his fingers on the table, his voice low but harsh even through the glass. Olivia bowed her head, flipping through a thick stack of documents, her hands trembling. Catherine couldn't hear the words, but the body language was clear. This wasn't an affair, it was a negotiation. The man wasn't a lover, but someone holding power over her. Moments later, Olivia shot to her feet, her face pale. The man shoved an envelope across the table, his cold eyes like knives. Olivia grabbed it and hurried out, shoulders heavy with dread. Catherine ducked behind a wall, her heart pounding. Any thoughts of infidelity melted away, replaced by a more terrifying realization. Olivia was entangled with loan sharks or worse, men capable of destroying the entire family. She leaned against the cold brick wall, her hand pressed to her chest. One thought echoed clear in her mind. I was wrong to think she was just cheating. The truth is far darker. Outside, Olivia hailed another taxi and disappeared into the night. Catherine remained frozen, knowing her investigation had just veered onto a more dangerous path. A few days later, while Olivia busied herself putting on makeup before heading out, Catherine quietly entered her daughter-in-law's bedroom. She pretended to bring in fresh linens, but her eyes swept the room like a detective. On the vanity table, amid the clutter of cosmetics and perfumes, Catherine noticed a small silver USB drive wedged between a pile of unpaid bills. Her heart raced. She hesitated only a moment before slipping it into her pocket and leaving the room just before Olivia could return. That night, when the house was silent, Catherine turned on her old laptop. Her hands shook as she plugged in the USB. A folder popped up, filled with saved email files. Catherine clicked one at random, and her eyes widened in horror. Olivia, the deadline has passed. If you don't pay this week, someone will suffer the consequences. Don't try to cheat us. We have enough evidence to bring your whole family down. Catherine clapped a hand over her mouth, her heartbeat thundering. She opened another file, then another. Each message was the same. Threats, warnings, deadlines. Some even included photos of Olivia at the restaurant, proof she was being watched. There was no longer any doubt. Olivia wasn't just drowning in debt. She was under the control of a dangerous man. The notebook with the strange numbers, the secret meetings, the photos, they all matched the threats in these emails. Leaning back in her chair, Catherine clutched her chest, torn between horror and pity. On one hand, she was sickened by Olivia's lies, by the facade she maintained so carefully. On the other hand, part of her heart ached Olivia might be desperate, and now her entire family was being dragged into this cruel game. She closed the laptop and carefully hid the USB in her own wardrobe. For the first time, Catherine realized just how much danger they were truly in. This wasn't only about money. It was about the safety of the people she loved. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating her face in the dark. Catherine whispered, her voice firm. I have to uncover this, before it's too late. That evening, after Andrew had left for an overnight business trip, Catherine knew she could wait no longer. She sat in the living room, the warm glow of the lamp reflecting her tense expression. When Olivia walked in, her high heels clicking coldly against the wooden floor, Catherine took a deep breath and spoke. Olivia, I need to have a serious talk with you. Olivia froze, her eyes narrowing with suspicion. She folded her arms, leaning casually against the wall. What now, Mother? More unnecessary questions about money? Catherine swallowed hard, forcing her voice steady. She pulled a printed copy of one of the threatening emails from her pocket and laid it on the table. Her hand trembled, but her words were firm. "I know you're being threatened. This is proof." "How long do you intend to keep this from Andrew?" For a split second, Olivia's face drained of color. But almost immediately, she burst into laughter, a sharp, bitter sound that echoed through the room. "Well, well, the old lady knows how to snoop. Do you think you're clever?" Catherine's voice hardened. "I don't care how much you owe, but if you endanger Andrew in this house, I will never forgive you." Olivia strode forward, her eyes flashing with fury. She snatched the paper from the table, crumpled it, and tossed it to the floor. Her voice was icy. "Proof? Where did you get this? Or did you fabricate it yourself to slander me? Who's going to believe a useless old woman like you?" Catherine froze, stunned by how quickly Olivia twisted the situation. Every word was like a knife, painting her as the villain. Olivia sneered, her tone dripping with mockery. "If Andrew finds out you sneaked into my room and stole my things, who do you think he'll believe? His successful, beautiful wife or his senile old mother?" Catherine stepped back, her eyes brimming with tears. She realized she had made a grave mistake. Olivia hadn't just denied everything, she had turned the tables, leaving Catherine defenseless. Leaning in close, Olivia hissed through clenched teeth, "This is your last warning. Stay out of my business. Otherwise, you'll regret it." With that, she spun around and stormed upstairs, leaving Catherine trembling in the living room, her heart crushed. The once quiet house now seethed with hostility. Catherine understood she had lost this round, and the game had just turned more dangerous than ever. The next morning, Catherine tried to act as if nothing had happened. But inside, her heart was still raw, her body trembling whenever she replayed Olivia's venomous words. She knew Olivia would now keep an even closer eye on her, which meant Catherine had to be even more careful. That afternoon, while Olivia went out shopping, Catherine slipped quietly into the storage shed at the back of the house. Dust and cobwebs clung to the shelves, but she sensed this was where Olivia might stash things she didn't want easily found. Her hunch proved right. Behind a stack of old boxes, she discovered a plain cardboard container tied loosely with string. Kneeling down, Catherine opened it and froze. Inside were dozens of documents, forged contracts, fake IDs, and receipts of large transactions with unfamiliar names. Some papers even bore her son Andrew's forged signature. Catherine's hands shook violently. My God, Olivia has been using Andrew's name. She lifted one document closer to her eyes. It was a loan agreement with a staggering sum, signed with Andrew's name, but in handwriting Catherine instantly recognized as Olivia's. A sickening wave of realization washed over her. Olivia wasn't just drowning in debt, she was dragging Andrew into it by forging his identity. A sound outside made her heart leap. She quickly stuffed the papers back into the box, tied it shut, and returned it to its place. Just in time, Olivia's heels clicked against the pavement as she entered the yard. Catherine hid behind the shelves, clutching her chest until Olivia finally walked back toward the house. When the coast was clear, Catherine returned inside, her face pale. She poured herself a glass of water, but her hands shook so hard the glass nearly slipped. That evening, as Andrew returned home tired from work, Catherine almost blurted everything out. She opened her mouth. "Andrew, there's something you should know about Olivia." But before she could continue, Olivia emerged from the kitchen, carrying a tray of food, her smile radiant, her voice sweet as honey. "Dinner's ready. Andrew, you must be exhausted." "Come sit down." Andrew smiled warmly, oblivious, and wrapped an arm around his wife's shoulder. Catherine's words withered on her tongue. She could only sit silently at the table, the weight of the secret pressing heavier than ever. That night, unable to sleep, Catherine sat by the window, staring into the darkness. Olivia's mask of kindness, her poisonous whispers, the forged documents, they all burned in her mind. She whispered to herself, her voice trembling yet resolute. If I expose her too soon, Andrew won't believe me. But if I stay silent, he'll be ruined. God, what should I do? The house creaked with the night wind. Catherine realized she was trapped in a silent war against her own daughter-in-law, a war of patience, cunning, and survival. One wrong move, and she could lose everything. A week later, on a rainy afternoon, Catherine was sweeping the front porch when the mailman passed by. Among the usual bills and flyers, she spotted a plain envelope with no return address. Her heart tightened. Inside was a single sheet of paper, the words typed in a cold, anonymous font. Beware of the woman living under your roof. She owes debts to dangerous people. If you don't act, you and your son will pay the price. Catherine's knees went weak. She sat down heavily on the porch step, the rain dripping steadily from the roof. Someone else knew. Someone out there was aware of Olivia's dealings and thought Catherine deserved a warning. That evening she slipped the letter beneath her pillow, her mind racing. Should she show it to Andrew? No, he would likely dismiss it as nonsense or worse, accuse her of mistrusting his wife again. But the anonymous message confirmed what she already knew. Olivia wasn't just careless or arrogant. She was tangled up with people so dangerous that outsiders had begun to notice. Later that night, Catherine walked past Olivia's room. Through the crack of the door, she saw her daughter-in-law sitting on the bed, whispering into the phone. Her tone was sharp, desperate. "I told you I'll get the money. Just give me a little more time. Don't call here again if Andrew finds out." The words stabbed at Catherine's chest. There was no longer any doubt. Olivia was spiraling deeper into a trap and dragging the entire family with her. The next morning, Catherine returned to the shed, determined to find more evidence. She dug deeper into the cardboard box she had discovered earlier. This time, beneath the forged contracts, she found photographs. Her blood ran cold. They were pictures of Andrew taken secretly as he walked to work, stopped for coffee, or chatted with colleagues. Each photo had notes scrawled on the back. Target safe, easy leverage. Catherine nearly dropped them in horror. This wasn't just Olivia's secret life anymore. These people were watching Andrew. He was already in their sights. Her breath came in sharp, panicked gasps. She pressed a hand to her chest, whispering, "They're using Olivia, but Andrew is the real target." That night, Catherine hid the photos under her mattress, unable to stop shaking. The storm outside lashed against the windows as if echoing her dread. She knew one thing for certain. The danger was no longer distant. It had already entered her home. A few nights later, Catherine's instincts told her this was the moment. Olivia, dressed elegantly in a black coat and red heels, left the house after dinner, claiming she was meeting an old friend. But Catherine knew better. She waited a few minutes, then slipped out into the cold night, following at a careful distance. The street was dimly lit, the rain still clinging to the air. Olivia hailed a taxi. Catherine flagged down another and instructed the driver to follow. The taxi stopped outside a deserted warehouse at the edge of town, far from the bright restaurants and cafes Olivia usually frequented. Catherine's stomach clenched. What kind of friend would meet her here? From the shadows, she watched Olivia step inside. Through a crack in the rusted door, Catherine saw the scene unfold. The man from the earlier photos was waiting, flanked by two thugs. His presence filled the space like a predator in his lair. Olivia approached nervously, clutching her purse, her face pale. "You're late," the man growled, slamming a folder onto the table. "Do you think you can stall us forever?" Olivia's voice trembled. "I just need a little more time. I'll get the money, I swear." The man leaned closer, his smile cold. "Time? You've run out. Next week we collect. And if you can't pay..." He tossed several photos across the table. Catherine's eyes widened as she saw them. Pictures of Andrew, her son, walking out of the office, getting into his car, even standing at their front door. Olivia gasped. "Leave him out of this. He doesn't know anything. This is between us." The man chuckled darkly.
Then you'd better make sure he never has to find out, because once we step in, he'll pay for your mistakes." Olivia's shoulders slumped, tears threatening to fall. She nodded weakly, defeated. From her hiding place, Catherine's heart nearly stopped. The truth crashed down on her with brutal clarity. Olivia wasn't just reckless, she was trapped in a web of crime, and now Andrew's life was in direct danger. She pressed her hand against her mouth to stifle a cry. The urge to rush in, to drag Olivia out, burned inside her. But she knew she couldn't not yet. As Olivia stumbled out of the warehouse, clutching her purse like a lifeline, Catherine ducked behind a wall, her entire body shaking. The night air cut into her lungs, but she hardly felt it. She whispered to herself, her voice trembling but resolute, "I have to protect Andrew, no matter what it takes." The warehouse door slammed shut, echoing in the darkness. Catherine knew she had just glimpsed the darkest corner of Olivia's secret life, and the storm was far from over. The following evening, Catherine could no longer contain herself. The images from the warehouse haunted her, keeping her awake all night. She had made her decision. She would confront Olivia directly. She waited until Andrew had gone upstairs to shower, then quietly entered the living room where Olivia was lounging on the sofa, idly scrolling through her phone. "Olivia," Catherine began, her voice low but steady. "We need to talk." Olivia glanced up, a faint smirk on her lips. "About what, Mother? Another one of your suspicions?" Catherine stepped closer, her eyes burning with fury and fear. "I saw you last night, at the warehouse, with those men." The smirk instantly vanished. Olivia froze, her phone slipping slightly in her hand. What did you just say?" "I know everything," Catherine pressed on, her voice trembling yet resolute. "The debts, the threats, the forged papers, and now they're targeting Andrew, my son, your husband." Olivia's face hardened. She set her phone aside and stood, her voice sharp as broken glass. "You had no right to follow me." "No right?" Catherine's voice cracked, her hands clenching. "This is my son's life we're talking about. You've dragged him into your mess, and you expect me to stay silent?" Olivia took a deep breath, trying to regain composure. She stepped closer until their faces were only inches apart. Her voice dropped to a hiss. "You don't understand. If I tell Andrew the truth, it will destroy him. He'll lose his job, his reputation, everything. These men don't forgive. They'll take it all." Catherine shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. "You should have trusted him. You should have trusted us. Instead, you've turned this house into a battlefield." For the first time, Olivia's facade cracked. Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears, her voice breaking. "I never meant for this to happen. I thought I could fix it on my own, but it's too big now. They won't let me go." Catherine stared at her, torn between rage and pity. Olivia wasn't just cruel or arrogant, she was also a prisoner of her own lies. Before Catherine could respond, footsteps echoed on the stairs. Andrew appeared in the doorway, towel slung over his shoulder, his eyes darting between the two women. "What's going on here?" Both froze. Olivia quickly wiped her eyes, forcing a smile. "Oh, nothing, darling. Just a little misunderstanding." But Catherine's heart pounded. She knew this was her chance, her only chance to reveal the truth. Her lips parted, words trembling on the edge. "Andrew, there's something you need to know about your wife." The room went silent, the air heavy as stone. Andrew looked from his mother to his wife, confusion deepening. Olivia's eyes widened, a silent plea in them, while Catherine's heart screamed to protect her son. Andrew frowned, sensing the tension that thickened the air. "What do you mean, Mom?" he asked carefully. Catherine's hands trembled. She clutched the back of the chair for support, her heart racing. "Andrew, Olivia isn't who you think she is. She's been hiding debts, massive debts. And worse, She's forged papers in your name, trying to use this house as collateral." Andrew froze, disbelief flashing across his face. "Mom, what are you saying?" Before Catherine could answer, Olivia stepped forward, her voice rising sharply. "This is insane. She's making things up, Andrew. She's been against me from the start, always trying to poison you against me." "Can't you see?" Catherine pulled a folded document from her pocket, the photocopy she had risked so much to save. Her voice quivered, but her eyes held firm. "Look at this. This is a forged contract. That is not your signature, Andrew. Someone tried to mortgage the house, and I know exactly who." Andrew took the paper with shaking hands. His eyes scanned the signature, his brow furrowing deeper with each second. He knew his own handwriting better than anyone. His chest tightened. This isn't mine." Olivia laughed nervously, stepping closer to him. "Andrew, please don't let her trick you. Anyone could have written this. She probably dug it out of some old box just to frame me." But Catherine's voice cut through the room like steel. "I have witnesses. Our neighbor saw you at the notary's office with a man, and there's more. I've spoken with people, Olivia. I know what you've done." Olivia's face drained of color for a split second before she masked it with fury. "You dare to spy on me? To humiliate me like this in front of my husband?" She turned to Andrew, her voice trembling between anger and desperation. "It's me or her, Andrew. Either you believe your wife or you let your mother destroy our marriage with her lies." Andrew stood there, the forged paper trembling in his hands, his mind reeling. He looked at his mother's pleading eyes, then at Olivia's desperate gaze. For the first time, the perfect image of his wife cracked before him, and he couldn't ignore the growing pit of doubt in his chest. Silence fell. Only the ticking clock on the wall marked the passing seconds. Finally, Andrew whispered, his voice breaking. "Olivia, tell me the truth. Did you do this?" Olivia's lips parted, but no words came. The room grew heavier with her silence. A few days later, the tension inside the house could no longer be contained. Rumors had already spread among the relatives about Catherine wanting to sell the house, about family discord. Some of it was true, much of it was twisted, and Catherine knew exactly who had planted those rumors. To end the whispers once and for all, a family gathering was called. On the day of her late husband's memorial, the living room was packed with relatives, brothers-in-law, cousins, even a few neighbors who had heard the gossip and wanted to see the truth unfold. Catherine sat quietly on the wooden chair near the altar, her wrinkled hands folded in her lap. Her heart pounded like a drum. She could feel the judgment in their stares, the weight of suspicion pressing down on her. Then Olivia descended the staircase. She wore a fitted black dress, her hair neatly tied, her lips painted crimson. She smiled sweetly, greeting relatives one by one, her voice gentle and courteous, the image of a dutiful daughter-in-law. But when her eyes flicked toward Catherine, they gleamed with icy contempt. The meal began, but conversation quickly shifted. One cousin spoke up, breaking the uneasy silence. "Catherine, we've all heard the talk. Is it true you're planning to sell this house?" Before Catherine could reply, Olivia's soft voice cut in. "Please don't misunderstand her. Mother mentioned it once, but only because she was worried about finances. I begged her not to. I would never let this house, our family's roots, be lost." Gasps rippled through the room. Some relatives nodded in sympathy toward Olivia, while others glanced at Catherine with doubt. Catherine felt her throat tighten. Olivia had twisted the truth so cleverly that sympathy poured in her direction. Catherine's chest ached with fury and helplessness, but she remembered Thomas's words, "Wait until you have proof. Then speak." Her hands shook as she rose from her chair. Slowly she reached under the embroidered cloth on the altar and pulled out the large envelope she had hidden there. "Since today is the day we honor my husband," Catherine said, her voice trembling but clear, "I cannot let lies desecrate his memory any longer. These are the documents I found in this very house." She opened the envelope and spread the photocopied contracts and forged deeds across the table. The signatures were clumsy imitations of Andrew's hand, glaringly fake under the candlelight. "This is not my son's signature," Catherine declared, her eyes fixed on Olivia. "Someone tried to use these papers to mortgage our home, and we all know who had the motive." The room fell silent. All eyes turned to Olivia. For a brief moment, her smile froze, her complexion paling. Then, with a bitter laugh, she recovered. "Really? This again? Old, wrinkled papers she dug out of a dusty box. Do you truly believe this nonsense?"
"She's just trying to ruin my reputation because she can't stand me." The relatives murmured, some swayed by Olivia's performance, others unsettled by the evidence laid bare. Andrew sat stiff, sweat beading on his forehead, staring at the forged papers in disbelief. Then Catherine's voice rang out again, steadier this time. "I'm not alone. Mrs. Tessa next door saw you with a strange man at the notary's office, and here." She gestured to Thomas, who sat quietly at the back. "This lawyer has verified that such documents were indeed submitted to the system." Whispers erupted across the room. Heads turned, eyes narrowed. The tide of suspicion was shifting. Olivia's mask cracked further. Rage flashed in her eyes as she spat. "You pathetic old woman! You think you can outsmart me with your so-called evidence? I'm the one keeping this house standing, not you. Without me, none of you would even have a home to sit in right now." Her shrill voice echoed off the walls, silencing the whispers. Relatives stared, some in shock, others in disgust. Andrew rose abruptly, his voice shaking. "Olivia, tell me it isn't true. Please. Tell me this is just some terrible mistake." But Olivia's silence stretched, heavy and damning. The perfect image she had crafted for years shattered in that moment, before all of them. The living room felt frozen in time. Dozens of eyes bore into Olivia, waiting for her to answer Andrew's trembling question. But she said nothing. Her silence screamed louder than words. Then Thomas, the lawyer, stood up. His calm, steady voice broke the suffocating quiet. "If Olivia insists she's innocent," he said, pulling a small recorder from his briefcase, "then perhaps everyone should hear this." He pressed play. Immediately, Olivia's own voice filled the room, clear, cold, undeniable. "I'll get the money, as long as you give me a few more weeks. The deed, I already have the house papers in my hands." The words echoed like thunder. Gasps spread through the crowd. Some relatives covered their mouths in shock. Others exchanged wide-eyed looks of horror. Catherine's hands gripped the back of her chair, her knees trembling, but her heart finally felt vindicated. Andrew staggered backward, staring at his wife as though seeing her for the first time. His voice cracked, raw with betrayal. "Olivia, so it's true? You were going to gamble away my parents' house, the home I grew up in, for your debts?" Olivia's face went pale. She stumbled forward, clutching at Andrew's arm. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she wailed, "Andrew, please, I had no choice. They threatened me. They said they'd ruin us if I didn't. I did it for us, for our future." But her pleas fell on deaf ears. One of Andrew's uncles rose sharply, his voice stern with disgust. "Don't twist this. If you were truly forced, you should have gone to the police, not forged your husband's signature and dragged the whole family into danger." Voices erupted angry, condemning. "Shameless! Ungrateful daughter-in-law! She tried to steal the house!" The room seethed with outrage. Olivia shook her head wildly, crying harder, but no one looked at her with sympathy anymore. Andrew pulled his arm free, his eyes brimming with hurt. "You betrayed me. You betrayed my family. I can never forgive this." Olivia let out a guttural cry, collapsing to her knees on the floor. But no hand reached out to help her. The relatives turned away, their faces etched with contempt. Catherine stood silently,
tears streaking down her cheeks, not tears of weakness, but of release. For the first time in months, the truth was undeniable. The mask had been ripped away, and everyone had finally seen Olivia for what she was. Andrew knelt beside his mother, his voice breaking as he whispered, "Mom, I'm so sorry. I should have believed you from the start." Catherine placed her trembling hand on his shoulder. She had no words. Her tears said everything. Meanwhile, Olivia remained on the floor, her sobs echoing in a room that no longer saw her as family. The slam of the front door echoed through the house as Olivia fled into the night. Her sobs faded into the distance, leaving behind only the acrid smell of incense and the heavy silence of the living room. No one spoke. The only sound was the faint crackle of the burning candles on the altar. One aunt finally shook her head and muttered, "A daughter-in-law who dares commit such a crime. There's no place for her here." Another relative added, her voice laced with anger, "Catherine, we wronged you. We doubted you. But now we see you were the victim all along." Murmurs of sympathy and regret rippled through the room. The same people who once looked at Catherine with suspicion now turned their eyes on her with guilt and compassion. Andrew remained kneeling at her side, his face stricken with grief. Thomas placed a steady hand on his shoulder. "Andrew, the truth is clear now. Forging legal documents, colluding with loan sharks if taken to court. Olivia will face charges. The decision is yours and your family's." Andrew's fists clenched, his knuckles white. He lifted his gaze to his mother, his voice hoarse. "Mom, I swear to you, from now on, I'll protect this house. I'll protect you. I won't let anyone hurt us again." Catherine's tears flowed freely. She didn't need promises of punishment for Olivia. Hearing her son's words, feeling his loyalty restored, that was enough. Around them, relatives argued in low voices. Some urged immediate police action. Others worried about shame if the scandal spread. But nearly all agreed on one thing: Olivia had no right to return to this house. Even Mrs. Tessa, their longtime neighbor, stepped forward and spoke firmly. "Catherine, you're not alone anymore. We all see the truth. No one will take this home from you." For the first time in months, Catherine felt a wave of relief wash over her. The loneliness, the humiliation, the whispers behind her back, all of it was swept away by the solidarity in that room. She turned toward her late husband's altar, clasped her trembling hands, and whispered through her tears, "My love, the truth is out at last. This house will stand. For Andrew. For us." The candles flickered brightly, as if blessing her vow. But Catherine also knew, though Olivia had left, the storm she brought would not fade overnight. The family would carry the scars, the community would remember the scandal, and Andrew's heart would take time to heal. Still, one thing was certain: the mask of lies had fallen, and the house that had nearly been stolen was safe once more. Within days, Olivia's world collapsed. The whispers of neighbors spread like wildfire. The daughter-in-law who tried to steal the family home. Wherever she went, eyes followed no longer with admiration, but with contempt. The creditors, once half-threatening, half-negotiating, now arrived at the house openly furious. They pounded on the doors, shouting demands, their voices echoing down the quiet street. For the first time, Andrew stepped forward, his voice firm and unyielding. "Do not come here again. I take no responsibility for any debt under Olivia's name. She is no longer my wife." The words hit Olivia like a hammer. Standing behind him, she went pale, her lips trembling. The men left with mocking laughter, leaving her shrunken and hollow in the doorway. Soon after, Olivia began packing. Her once perfect hair was tangled, her eyes sunken and rimmed with sleepless nights. The proud daughter-in-law, who once dazzled relatives in designer dresses, now dragged a battered suitcase down the stairs in silence. At the foot of the staircase, she stopped. Her voice broke as she turned to Catherine. "Mother, give me one more chance. I can change. I'll do better. I promise." Catherine stood still, her face weary yet resolute. There was no hatred in her eyes now, only exhaustion and a quiet sorrow. "You've had many chances, Olivia. Each time you chose deceit. I can forgive you in my heart, but I cannot open this door for you again." Olivia's tears spilled as she bowed her head. Andrew looked away, unable to face her pleading gaze. Catherine gently closed the door behind her, the latch clicking like the final stroke of a judge's gavel. Outside, drizzle fell from the gray sky. Olivia pulled her suitcase into the rain, her figure shrinking until it vanished at the end of the street. No one called after her. No one tried to stop her. Catherine lingered at the window, watching until Olivia's shadow disappeared. Her chest tightened not with victory, but with grief for what could have been. When she turned, she found Andrew sitting silently by the table, his face pale and drawn. "Andrew," she whispered. He lifted his eyes, red with sleepless nights. "Mom, how could I have been so blind? How could the woman I loved betray me like this? I feel like a fool." Catherine sat beside him, placing her frail hand over his. "No one is foolish for loving. You were only wrong to love someone who didn't know how to cherish it. But now, you've opened your eyes before it was too late." Andrew's lips quivered, his voice thick. "I'm sorry, Mom. I let you suffer alone." "I didn't stand by you when you needed me most." Tears welled in Catherine's eyes, but she smiled softly. "You're here with me now. That's enough." After Olivia's departure, the house felt strangely quiet, peaceful, yet heavy with the echoes of what had happened. Catherine walked through the rooms that once carried tension like a storm cloud, and now held only silence. But instead of relief alone, she felt a lingering emptiness. Andrew, too, was a different man. His once naive trust was gone, replaced by a sober heaviness. Yet in that grief lay a spark of resolve. One evening, as they sat together on the porch, Andrew turned to his mother. "Mom, I want to fix the house," he said softly. "Patch the roof, repaint the walls. I want us to start over. I want this home to feel like ours again." Catherine was taken aback. She studied his face, tired but determined. Slowly, her lips curved into a fragile smile. "Yes, Andrew. Let's make it new again." And so they began. Week by week, Andrew replaced broken tiles, patched leaks, and painted the faded walls with fresh, bright coats. Catherine, though her body was frail, helped as much as she could, cleaning, holding ladders, preparing tea for her son. Every stroke of the paintbrush, every nail hammered in, felt like erasing a scar. The house, once stained by deceit and fear, was reborn under their hands. Relatives who had once doubted Catherine began to visit again. Their tones were softer, their words more careful. Some even admitted their mistakes. "Catherine, if it weren't for your persistence, the house would have been gone," one brother-in-law confessed. Catherine simply smiled, not with pride, but with quiet acceptance. She hadn't fought to prove herself right. She had fought to protect her home, her son, and the memory of her husband. The neighbors, too, changed. Where once there had been whispers and sideways glances, there were now greetings, warm nods, even praise. "You were strong, Catherine," Mrs. Tessa said one afternoon. "Not everyone could have done what you did." Catherine's chest warmed at those words, though she didn't answer. Strength had never been her choice. It had been her only option. Andrew grew closer to her as well. He no longer let his work consume him entirely. Some evenings, he would sit quietly with Catherine, simply holding her hand, saying nothing. That silence, once heavy with suspicion, was now full of unspoken love and gratitude. One night, Andrew whispered, I thought a home was built only on a husband and wife's love, but I was wrong. A true home is built on the people who will protect you, no matter the storm. I only found that in you, Mom." Catherine wept quietly at his words, her heart both aching and soothed. Olivia became nothing more than a shadow in their memories. No longer a source of anger, just a regret, a life wasted by greed and lies. Late at night, Catherine would sometimes light a stick of incense at her husband's altar and whisper, "The storms have passed. The house stands strong. Andrew understands now. You can rest easy." The flickering flame always seemed to glow brighter, as though answering her vow. Months passed, and the house truly felt alive again. Fresh paint gleamed on the walls. The garden bloomed with Catherine's favorite roses, and the air no longer carried the weight of suspicion. It was not the house that had changed most, it was the people inside. One Sunday morning, Andrew prepared breakfast, something he hadn't done since childhood. He set the table carefully, calling out, "Mom, come sit. Today I'll cook for you." Catherine smiled warmly as she joined him. They ate in companionable silence, sunlight streaming across the table, filling the room with warmth. For the first time in a long while, Catherine felt that the house was not only safe, but truly a home again. When the meal was done, Catherine placed her hand gently over Andrew's. "Son, remember this. A home isn't built on walls or money. It's built on honesty, on love, on loyalty. Without those, everything collapses." Andrew nodded, his voice thick with emotion. "I know that now, Mom. I'll never let us fall into lies again." Together, they stepped into the garden. The roses swayed softly in the breeze, glowing red in the morning light. Catherine inhaled deeply, her heart lighter than it had been in years. She knew her story was reaching its quiet end. She had fought her battles, endured betrayal, and held fast when no one believed her. Now, the house stood firm, her son by her side, and peace within her heart. Looking at Andrew, then at the home her husband had once built, brick by brick, Catherine whispered softly, "Family is where we are tested the most and the only place truly worth protecting, until the very end." The words lingered in the air like a blessing, carried gently by the wind. And in that moment, Catherine knew the storms had passed, but the lesson would remain forever.